Hi, welcome back. This is exercise 3.2, positioning and sprites. In this exercise, we're going to be adding some more style to the main navigation bar at the top of the page. And we're going to be stylizing it so that each link kind of looks like a button when we hover over it, like we're pressing in a button. And we're also going to add a social media bar on the right-hand side of the screen. And both the navigation and the social bar, we're going to apply some positioning to them so that they'll stay put, they'll stay in place even when the browser is scrolling. I've went ahead and downloaded the starting code, and you can see I brought it up here in Sublime Text. And the two main files we're going to need to work with here is the index page and the style.css page. So the first thing we're going to do is we can scroll down here to the header. And remember, inside the header we have the logo panel, but we also have this nav bar. And we want to start styling this nav bar. We're going to style this div with the ID of nav bar to have a gradient texture that repeats across the screen. And then we're also going to style this box called nav, the HTML5 semantic container called nav here. And then we'll also style each of these individual links here. So let's go ahead and jump over to the style.css page, and we can scroll down. And I created a comment here. You can see on line 139 we can start writing some code to style the nav bar. So the first thing I want to do is I want to select that div with the ID of nav bar itself. And I'd like to add a background image to this. Now previously we looked at using CSS3 gradient to make a fade from one color to another. And this time I'm going to show you kind of like an older strategy, or sort of like a legacy technique for getting a gradient to appear. And that involves using actually creating the gradient as like a little image slice, and then you can repeat that image horizontally. So actually let's take a look at that image really quick here. I'll just go ahead and bring it up. So this one's called header fade, and it may be a little bit hard to tell because this is so narrow, but this is kind of like a light gray color here. It fades from one color gray to another, and it gets a little darker here at the bottom. So that's going to be the graphic we use, and we're going to repeat this little thin sliver of a graphic horizontally. Since this is just a little tiny sliver of graphic, a little tiny image here, this image is going to load very quickly. It's actually a very small file size. And then by repeating it horizontally, we're going to get it to flow across the page. And so we can have a real small file size like 4K, and we can use that on a large part of the screen and it'll still load very quickly. So before CSS3 gradients, oftentimes we're using an actual image that had the gradient inside of it. So we'll go ahead and say URL, and we'll point towards our images folder, and we're going to use that one that's called header-fade.gif. And we're going to tell this one to only repeat horizontally, like that, repeat X. Okay, we're also going to add a border on the bottom here. And previously we looked at using the CSS shorthand border, which affects all sides, but we can also say border-bottom, border-left, border-top, border-right. So in this case we'll set 1 pixel solid, and we'll use a medium gray color like that. I'm going to add a couple more styles here. So we also want to add a border to the nav box itself. So we can go ahead and specifically target the nav that's inside of navbar by using a descendant selector. So we're saying, hey browser, go and find a element that has a unique ID of navbar, go inside of it and select that HTML5 semantic element called nav. And this one we're just going to tell it to have a border-left, 1 pixel solid #CCC, like that. Okay, cool. Now inside of this guy we have the links that we want to style, so I'll start styling these links here, and we'll be real specific again using a descendant selector. We'll say, hey browser, go and find something, an element with a unique ID of navbar. Go inside of it and find an element called nav, and go inside that element and style all the links inside of it. So this only styles links inside of nav that is inside of navbar. So it's pretty specific there. So for these links, we want to set them to display inline dash block, and that way they'll be able to accept a width. And what we want to do is we want to set this up so that all 5 of the links have equal spacing. And you'll remember that this nav bar here, the div with the ID of nav bar, this is just across the entire screen 100%. And then we have a div with a class of wrapper here. And this guy has a fixed width of 960 pixels. And then inside of that we have this guy called nav. So nav doesn't have a width specified currently, so it's just stretching 100% until it runs into the edge of the wrapper, which is 960. So I basically have these 5 links here: about, on sale, catalog, pricing, and contact, and I want those to take up an equal amount of space within here. So if I take that 100% of room that I have available inside of nav and I divide it by 5, I get 20%. So I can set this guy to have a width of 20% like that. And we'll make sure that this has no margin around it. We'll say margin 0, and we'll add some padding in here as well. I really just want some padding on the top and bottom, so I'm going to set 22 pixels of padding on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. I'm going to use text transform and make all the text automatically transform to uppercase characters only. And we'll set the color of the text to be black. Okay. And let's see, we'll also set the text to align in the center in relationship to those boxes. So we'll say text align center. Next, we're going to put a border on only the right-hand side of each of those links, and we're going to set it to 1 pixel solid CCC. And we want to remove the underline off these links, so I'm going to set the text decoration to none. And we're also going to set the font here using the CSS shorthand font property. And I'm going to set the font to be 20 pixels, and we'll use we'll use Treybucket MS, like that. Oops, I have an extra set of quotes there. I got to get rid of one set. There we go. And we will say, as a backup, we'll say Arial sans serif, like that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save that. Let's take a look at this guy in the browser. So we'll come back and we'll refresh. Cool, so navbar has a fade called headerFade.gif that is repeating 100% of the screen because the div with the ID of navbar does not have a width specified, and it's a block level element, so it's just going 100% of the screen. The wrapper here is 960 pixels, so that guy is centering right here and matching the width of this wrapper and this wrapper up here. So these all align perfectly. Now nav is inside of the wrapper, and I gave a left border of gray on nav. So this little line here is created by creating a border dash left on nav, and then each link has a border dash right. So that gives me the border here on about, here on sale, here on catalog, here on pricing, and here on contact, which gives us kind of like a little separation, making them look a little bit more like buttons. You can see the text decoration uppercase and the font styling there. Okay, let's see, that's pretty good. Let's see, we also want to be able to let the user know which particular page we're on, so that when they click on a page, that link has a different style, so that we can see that that's the page that we've landed on. So let's go back to the CSS here. And let's create a specific style for that. I'm going to go ahead and say navbar space a dot selected. So this is only going to select links that happen to have a class of selected if they're inside of navbar. And I'm going to give this guy a background color here. We're going to say background black. So it's going to have a darker background color, and I'm going to set the foreground color here to white, like that. And I'm going to go apply this. I'm going to go in and apply this class to each page. And then we're going to go back to the index.html page. And on the index page, this is really the about page. So inside of this link here, I want to add a class of selected only to this link. And we can copy this code here, class selected, and I will add this to the other pages. So I'll go into catalog and down to the navigation, and I'll find the link surrounding catalog, which is right here. And this one I'm going to give it a class of selected. So on this page, the catalog link is selected. And we'll go to the contact page, and I'll scroll down, and we'll go to the contact link, which is right here, and we'll paste in that class of selected there. We'll go to the pricing page, and here's the link for pricing, and I'll go inside of that link and we'll paste the class of selected in there. And lastly, we can go to sales, and we'll go to the on sale link here, and I'll paste in that class of selected there, and we can save. And then we'll come over to the browser and we will refresh. Cool, so you can see there that this link is having the class of selected on it. If I click the sale page, now this one has the black class of selected on it. Catalog has the class of selected there. Pricing, the class of selected there, and contact, the class of selected there. So you can see that each link has, it almost kind of makes it look like a tab structure, like that button's pushed in for the particular page. Okay, cool. So we're going to go ahead and go back to the style.css page here. And we'd like to add a hover state here. So we'll say navbar nav a colon hover, like that. And here we're going to change a few things. We're going to change the color of the text to white, and we're going to change the background color to a gradient. And for this one, I'll just use a CSS3 gradient there. So we'll go to the browser and we'll go find our friend, the ColorZilla gradient editor. And I've already created an appropriate gradient here. It just starts off as a black color on the edges and fades to like a lighter gray in the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and say copy. And we'll paste this in here. There we go. And we'll give that a save. And we'll come back to the browser and refresh. Okay, cool. And you can see when I hover over there, then now these links light up only on the hover state. That was using the pseudo class selector a colon hover, right? And then when we switch pages, we get the darker color on the selected class, like that. Cool, okay. Right now we just have these elements just have normal positioning here, and what I've done is I've already added enough padding above the logo here that we can actually fit this navigation bar, nav bar, to be positioned above the logo and fixed in place. And that way when we scroll down the page, that navigation bar will stay there. And initially, when you first load the page, you'll see the logo underneath the nav bar, and then when you scroll down, it will start to cover it up. So let's jump back to the code, and we'll go back to nav bar here. So we're going to go ahead and add a position here of fixed. So now this has fixed positioning. It should stay fixed even when the browser window scrolls. And we want it to be in the very top of the page, so I'm going to say top 0, left 0. So it's in the very top left corner of the page. Now, since we set this guide to position fixed, it's going to actually collapse its width, even though no width is specified. So what we really should do is we should specify a width of 100% for that navigation bar there. And remember, our friend z-index will allow it to be above other things. So if I say z-index 1, it should be on top of everything else. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that and come back to the browser and take a look at this. So this nav bar is going to jump up here when I do a page refresh, like that. So that's cool. So we just made the nav bar go on top, and because it's set to position fixed, when I scroll, that nav bar always stays there now. So if I come down here to this video and I'm like, oh, this is a cool video, but I want to go to another page, I don't have to scroll all the way to the top. I can just always have access to that nav bar at all times. So that's one use for position fixed. Okay, that's looking pretty slick. I like it. What do you guys think?